तपाईको
Namaskar Jayji.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Yes sir, you are in here. तपाईलाई रेडियो नेपाली अमेरिकामा स्वागत छ. आजको what is यो आजको सेगमेन्ट छ what is your story. आज हजुरले एकदम छोटो समयमा हाम्रो रेडियोमा आएर तपाईको स्टोरी शेयर गर्नको लागि राजी हुनुकोमा म तपाईलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु. So how are you doing today? कस्तो छ आज वेदर? न्युयोर्कमा भर्खरमा फ्लाइट सकाएर भर्खर एयरपोर्टबाटै हसल बसल गर्दै भर्खर आइपुगेको छु रेडियो स्टेसन.
So सर्वप्रथम जयजी र सुजनजी मलाई यो प्रोग्राममा इन्भाइट गर्नु भएकोमा म तपाईलाई धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु. अनि स्टार्टिङ विथ द वेदर भनेपछि यहाँको pretty स्प्रिंगी वेदर छ भनेपछि यहाँ न्युयोर्क ईस्ट कोस्टमा हैन बस्नेहरूलाई थाहा छ हैन. यहाँ स्प्रिङ भनेपछि एकदमै सर्ट हुन्छ के विन्टरबाट समरमा ट्रान्जिसन गर्न हार्डली 1-2 विक जति लाग्छ. अनि मेरो विचारमा अब मेमोरियल डे पनि आइपुगेछ हैन युएस मा. अनि त्यो हिसाबले हामी pretty soon we're going to go into the summer. Which is pretty nice weather. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Right. So श्रोताबिन दर्शकहरू जो युट्युबमा लाइभ हेर्दै हुनुहुन्छ, फेसबुकमा लाइभ हुनुहुन्छ, म हाम्रो आज गेस्ट स्पिकरको छोटो ब्रिफ म बायो दिन चाहन्छु. उहाँले मालविया नेशनल इन्स्टिट्युट अफ टेक्नोलोजी जयपुरबाट बीई गर्नुभएको छ इलेक्ट्रिकल इन्जिनियरिङमा र टक स्कुल अफ बिजनेस डार्टमाउथबाट एमबीए गर्नुभएको छ र इन्टरनेसनल युनिभर्सिटी अफ जापानबाट पनि एमबीए इन फाइनान्स गर्नुभएको छ. त्यसैगरी उहाँ चाहिँ अहिले नेपालमा त्रिभुवन युनिभर्सिटीमा पनि पुल्चोक क्याम्पसमा उहाँ लेक्चरबाट काम गर्नुभएको थियो र त्यसपछि उहाँ चाहिँ पीडब्ल्यूसी मा सिनियर कन्सल्टेन्ट फाइनान्स रिस्क म्यानेजमेन्ट प्र्याक्टिसमा निकै वर्ष काम गर्नुभयो र त्यसपछि उहाँ चाहिँ पीडब्ल्यू पछि गोल्डम्यान स्याक्समा म्यानेजिङ डाइरेक्टर मार्केट रिस्क म्यानेजमेन्ट पनि निकै वर्ष काम गर्नुभयो र अहिले उहाँ चाहिँ डाइरेक्टर अफ हेड अफ मार्केट काउन्टरपार्टी क्रेडिट एन्ड ट्रेजरी रिस्क वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कमा वासिङटन डीसीमा काम गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ. So we have such a awesome distinguished guest today. र उहाँको आज स्टोरी कसरी उहाँ आज यो वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कमा कसरी पुग्नुभयो उहाँको स्टोरी आज हामी गफ गर्नेछौँ. सो अरविन्द जी तपाईको एकदम के भन्छ यो गोल्डम्यान सैक्सको त मैले यहाँ भन्नै बिर्सेँ. गोल्डम्यान सैक्स पनि ओके. सो यु वर्क इन गोल्डम्यान सैक्स, यु वर्क इन पीडब्ल्यूसी, तपाईँ लेक्चरर पनि हुनुहुन्छ, इन्जिनियर पनि हुनुहुन्छ. That's a fascinating resume you have.
Thank you.
So सरको यो बाल्यकाल अब हाम्रो स्टोरीमा हामी यो बचपनदेखि लैजान्छौँ र त्यसपछि हामी वर्तमानमा आउँछौँ. अनि सरको नेपालमा तपाईको गाउँको, तपाईको जिल्लाको, तपाईको स्कुलको साथीहरू पनि यहाँ धेरै होला. Maybe they are listening the Radio Nepali America today. अलिकति फेरि तपाईको बाल्यकालको बारेमा कस्तो थियो, कहाँ हाई स्कुल पढ्नुभयो अनि कसरी के भन्छ अमेरिका पुग्नुभयो, त्यो अलिकति त्यो हाम्रो तपाईको स्टोरी हाम्रो दर्शकहरूलाई र श्रोताहरूलाई बताइदिनुहुन्छ कि?
Sure. मेरो जन्म मेरो गाउँ चाहिँ मारड भनेर सिरा जिल्लामा पर्छ. मारडको अर्को नाम चन्द्रगञ्ज बजार पनि हो. अनि चन्द्रगञ्ज बजार भनेपछि चन्द्र शमशेरको नामबाट त्यति बेला भन्सार पनि हो मारड इन्डियाको लागि. अनि चन्द्रगञ्जको चर्चा चाहिँ लेट प्राइम मिनिस्टर बीपी कोइरालाको जीवनीमा पनि छ, किनभने बीपी कोइरालाजीले पनि आफ्नो बाल्यकालको केही अवस्था त्यहाँ भन्सारमा चन्द्रगञ्ज बजारमा व्यतीत गर्नुभएको थियो, किनभने उहाँको बुवा चाहिँ त्यति बेला भन्सारमा हाकिम हुनुहुन्थ्यो. भनेपछि त्यो चाहिँ मेरो गाउँ हो. अनि मेरो चाहिँ पढाइ लेखाइ जब चाहिँ वीरगञ्जमा गरेँ. मेरो बुवा चाहिँ त्यहाँ ठाकुराम क्याम्पस वीरगञ्जमा कार्यरत हुनुहुन्थ्यो. अनि म वीरगञ्जबाट त्रिभुवन हनुमान हाई स्कुल भनेर छ होइन, अनि त्यहाँबाट मैले एसएलसी गरेँ. अनि मेरो चाहिँ गाउँबाट पनि त्यतिकै होइन रिलेसनसिप चाहिँ जहिले पनि हाम्रो के हुन्थ्यो भने वर्षको 2-3 चोटि हामी गाउँ जान्थेँ होइन. एक दसैँ भइहाल्यो. अनि त्यसपछि समर टाइममा अनि कहिलेकाहीँ मेरो बुवा चाहिँ आधा चाहिँ प्रोफेसर कलेजमा आधा चाहिँ किसान भनेपछि हामीलाई खेतीको टाइममा गाउँ जानु पर्थ्यो. अनि त्यहाँ गएर खेतीमा हेर्ने होइन, अरू भनेपछि त्यही हो धान गेहूँ, अरू त के हो न तराईको खेती त त्यही हो. अनि पहिला गाजा पनि हुन्थ्यो हाम्रो जिल्लातिर, त्यो पनि मैले देखेको छु. त्यो पनि that's very
भनेपछि
very
सरले हलो जोत्नु भएको छ?
holo jotechu. I have done those things, and I
You
used
have
to
done
take
that?
bath in the, you have this pumping set, to irrigate the land, and I used to take a bath there. So I have seen both sides of life
त्यो त्यो
there.
त्यो बैलगाडी हुन्छ नि, बैलगाडी हाँक्नु भएको छ?
मैले बैलगाडीबाट यहाँ चाहिँ मेला सेलामा जान्थेँ म मेरो बजैसँग भने I have all the experiences where you put the tripod on top of belgadi, and then you travel all night long, and with the lalten, and like on the side of a, so I have been through the journey, and that has enriched my life. I mean, I think definitely I give credit to my background wherever I am. भनेपछि but those days are gone. अब बैलगाडी भनेपछि अब गाउँमा मेरो गाउँमा म हरेक वर्ष गाउँ जान्छु, तर बैलगाडी चाहिँ छैन अब, किनभने इट्स नट एफिसिएन्ट नाउ। बैल राख्नु, बैलगाडी राख्नु भनेपछि मेन्टेनेन्स चाहिन्छ होइन।
भनेपछि तपाईँले त्यो धानको खेतमा जुन बिया रोप्ने त्यो पनि एक्सपिरियन्स गर्नुभएको छ?
होइन, एक्सपिरियन्स गर्नु चाहिँ मलाई सिजन थाहा छ होइन। हाम्रो अब तराईतिर भन्छ दुई खेती हुन्छ धानको, एउटा आउँस भन्छ, आउँस भनेपछि अर्ली हार्भेस्टिङ हुन्छ त्यसको, भनौँ न आसिनतिर, बिफोर आसिन, बिफोर दसैँ, एन्ड देन यु प्लान्ट द धान। अनि धान चाहिँ यु गेट इन मन्सिरतिर, मन्सिर र पुसतिर होइन काट्ने त्यो हो। अनि के हुन्छ भने तराईतिर धानको खेती भयो भने 3 बजे बिहानैदेखि नै उसलाई के भन्छ दौनी भन्थ्यो, अब के भन्ने टेक्निकल वर्ड त्यसलाई, बट बेसिकली त्यो धान निकाल्ने के उसबाट धानको
I know what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
yes. So that's definitely, and I do remember those things. So I used to, even though I used to study in school in Birgan, I used to spend a lot of time, maybe 1/3 to half of my time in the village until 7th or 8th grade. And then after that, I had to become a little bit serious on the studies. So then I was going less, but still it was once, say, twice, at least twice a year. So that was a very unique experience. And it was a very journey, because if you recall, कमलामा पहिले पुल थिएन। अब पहिलाको महेन्द्र राजमार्ग अब जे भन्छ होइन, टोटली डिट्याच फ्रम द कन्ट्री फर अ लङ टाइम, सो आई डोन्ट नो। कमला चाहिँ अब तपाईँ महेन्द्र राजमार्गबाट त्यहाँ गोदावरसम्म पुग्नु, त्यसपछि मान्छे ओर्लिन्थ्यो, अनि देन यु क्रस द रिभर, कमला रिभर, बिकज देयर इज नो ब्रिज, and you take the bus on the other side because you have to go to Lahan, Dhanusa, Purva जानु, sorry, not Lahan and Saptari तिर जानु पर्यो भने तपाईँ, otherwise the alternative path was you go through India, like Jayanagar and all those places. So I have been through those journey in Nepal. So
right. So सरको यो जयनगरको जुन इन्जिनियरिङ गर्नुभयो त्यो त्यहाँसम्म के छ स्टोरी, कसरी पुग्नुभयो त्यहाँ?
अनि मेरो चाहिँ आई मिन म जहिले पनि एउटा मेहनती स्टुडेन्ट रहेँ होइन। अनि एसएलसीमा पनि म मेरो डिस्ट्रिक्ट टपर थिएँ, म पर्सा डिस्ट्रिक्टबाट, बिरियन चाहिँ पर्सा डिस्ट्रिक्टमा पर्छ। त्यसपछि मैले आइएससी चाहिँ ठाकुराम क्याम्पसमा गरेँ, त्यहाँ मेरो म नेपाल टपर थिएँ, त्यहाँबाट ठाकुराम क्याम्पसबाट नेपाल टपर भनेपछि त्रिभुवन युनिभर्सिटी, द्याट वाज द ओन्ली युनिभर्सिटी द्याट टाइम। एन्ड देन अन द्याट बेसिस आई वाज सेलेक्टेड टु द कोलम्बो प्लान to study electronics and telecommunication engineering in India. And we were the last batch, and after that, I think the whole thing got handed over to Indian embassy. So let's not get into the politics, but so we were selected by the Shiksha Mantralayabada in a selection bara. And that's how I managed to went to Jaipur. And Jaipur also, I had a very stellar results. I was a gold medalist there in my branch. I came back, and then 2 years I taught at Pulcha campus. Basically, Dr. Jagannath Shrestha हुनुहुन्थ्यो, that time the head of the department, and I was helping him in terms of establish the new department, the electronics department त्यति बेला थिएन, civil engineering मात्रै थियो Pulcha campusमा. So definitely I work with Jagannath sir, and there were of course so many other professors and seniors as well. And then I always wanted to do MBA because I want to try something new in life, because engineering भनेपछि होइन, when you are coming from a town like Birganj, you don't know much about the world. The only thing you know, you want to be engineer, doctor. But after you have done it, and I did very well, but I realized that I could do something different. अनि मैले त्यति बेला मेरो भनौँ न आर्थिक स्थिति पनि मेरो बुवाको पर्सनली वाज नट ग्रेट. So I was looking for a scholarship program to do my MBA. Of course, USA is out of question because USA doesn't offer a scholarship for the MBA program. Then I applied to different program like Sydney, University of Sydney, Asian Institute of Management, Manila, and also this International University of Japan in Niigata. And so I got a scholarship both at Sydney and Niigata, but Japan, that was like early 90s, was peeking through, right? There was a lot of craze about Japan. So I thought, okay, I should go to Japan. And that's how I ended up in Japan. I did my MBA there. And then I started my first job with the PricewaterhouseCoopers in Tokyo and in Hong Kong. And then in 99, I got a job with the Goldman Sachs in Tokyo. 2003, I moved from Tokyo within Goldman Sachs to New York City. And I worked in New York City for 16 years in Goldman, together 20 years. And then 2.5 years ago, मैले Economist magazine मा एउटा advertisement देखेँ कि होइन, they were looking for a director for the risk management position. And I applied, and fortunately things worked out, and I got the job. So that's how I'm in DC now. I'm in
Wow.
working there.
So such a, this is like I need to hold my breath to just recap again. So you went from engineering to the management. So त्यति बेला नेपालमा, I mean, it says that doing engineering is like a gold, and if you have MBA, it's like a सुनमा सुगन्ध भयो जस्तो. That was your strategy, or you always like management driven person?
म engineering गरेर आएपछि होइन, then I wanted to do MA in economics in TU. But my father himself was economics professor. He thought that's a doomed idea. Why would you want to do economics? Because there's no point of doing it, because I was always interested in more than just pure engineering. So rather, I was always trying to diversify myself. Of course, there was the angle एउटा पनि यो पनि थियो कि होइन, बाहिर गएर MBA गरेर नेपालमा फर्क्यो भने then you are definitely, you have a good combination of engineering and MBA. तर नेपालमा
होइन मतलब कम्पनीको जनरल म्यानेजर बन्ने पाथ हो नि त त्यो
हो, जेनरल म्यानेजर पाएको थियो, तर नेपालमा पनि अब मलाई चाहिँ सुरुमा अब आएपछि थुप्रै अपर्च्युनिटीहरू थियो कि नेपालमा त्यति बेला होइन. अब पहिलो जब आई गट अ जब एट जनकपुर चुरोट कारखाना, and that was some of my relatives said, no, you should go join the job. I didn't like it because I didn't see the upside, because I was looking for something different.
Right.
Second job I was getting as a biomedical engineer, the cancer hospital in the BP Goyal hospital in Bharatpur. And there they're telling me, okay, they will send me to IIT Bombay to study biomedical engineering for 2 years, but then I have to come back and serve there. I didn't like this. Third job I got a job in the Royal Palace when King Birendra was still there. And then I rejected that job. They applied, and then they gave me the offer, and I rejected the job. And one of my uncle, he's CDO, and he told me that, are you stupid? Are you dumb? Why are you rejecting a job offer from Royal Palace?
Right.
So, but then somehow, I didn't want to kind of, bind myself or constrain myself. I know it's not like I was always thinking big, but what I want to passion when I want to do something different. Engineering, I did it, and I was definitely really good. Getting a gold medal in India in a competitive society in electronics and telecom, it's not an easy deal. You can
Absolutely.
go and ask anybody. That's also
And you
regional
have
engineering call.
competition with the IITians over there, all these guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. These guys were, a lot of these guys didn't go to IITs because they were. I went to Jaipur, REC Jaipur, so I excelled it. But then I realized that no, I don't enjoy that job. भनेपछि मेरो natural talent चाहिँ अब नेपाल टेलकममा हुन्थ्यो होइन, नेपाल के भन्छ त्यो नेपाल दूरसञ्चार विभाग, अब I'm forgetting it, getting a long time ago. So, but that didn't apply. But then I thought I will do the teaching job, and then so that I can keep exploring things that I wanted to do in life. And fortunately, I applied, and I took GRE, I took GMAT, and it's that time it's very difficult, and I was not earning a lot. I
Right.
was getting paid like a 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 Nepali महिनाको, and then I didn't want to be a burden on my father. So I used to manage a lot, because even the fee for GRE and GMAT was a big deal. I mean, if people from my time, they can tell you, if you're not supported by somebody else. I mean, of course, there were other things like, okay, somebody would say, okay, I'll give you money, go. But then I didn't want to get like a
Obligation.
obligations. भनेपछि then things worked out well. I mean,
So in
when I
Japan, sir, in Japan, did your MBA in English language or Japanese language?
fortunately, I mean, University of Maga, that was the only school that time offering courses where medium instruction was English.
Wow.
All other, and there was one more called Sophia University, but that was the only one. but then I did try to learn Japanese language in parallel because that was a curiosity again. I was so
Yes.
curious to do, but I did learn the language, but I never perfected Japanese language. So I never used the language. I can still, I mean, to go back with a little bit of practice. I can speak
Yes.
fluently, but
Konnichiwa.
that's konnichiwa.
I learned some Japanese while I was, studying in China too, but now I forgot. So दुई तिनवटा कुरा आउँछ केन्की देशका कोनिचिवा आरिगातो ओमिदतो गोजाइमास भनेपछि सर तब यो सिराहाबाट जन्मेको वीरगञ्जमा पढ्नुभयो भनेपछि कतिवटा ल्याङ्ग्वेज बोल्नुहुन्छ
ल्याङ्ग्वेज त खास भनौँ भने मैथिली भनेपछि मेरो मदर टङ भयो. नेपाली डेफिनेटली इज आवर नेसनल ल्याङ्ग्वेज.
भोजपुरी पनि
एन्ड भोजपुरी पनि बोल्छु, तर अगेन इट डिपेन्ड्स अन द प्र्याक्टिस बिकज आई वाज इन बिरगन्ज मोस्ट अफ द टाइम.
पढ्नु
अनि अनि इनफ्याक्ट मैले भने मैले I'm still interested in many things in life. At one point of time when I was a teacher there, I was doing a French course, a German course, and Japanese course. I started those three languages concurrently, same time, because I just wanted to try. I gave up on French very quickly because I realized it just doesn't go well with if English is your second language. It's very difficult to learn French.
right.
uh, German was very easy. I was making a lot of progress, and Japanese was very easy. I was making progress. But then I got this offer from admission at International University of Japan in Niigata. So I then went for offer. I stopped my German. So I'm always curious about learning new languages. But now, I mean, it's a different phase.
So
Right
that's
now I'm less into languages now. But at
so
some
that
point, I
was
was very.
your Japan was the MBA was completely a scholarship. That was so what in Japan. I'm just curious. Like, is that they give you enough scholarship to survive in Japan? Japan is so expensive.
Yes, in my case, they gave me enough scholarship. I can tell you that when I left, I mean, Nepal, I mean, it used to be RNSE go direct flight to Osaka and a direct one no, via Shanghai. So the only thing I had to pay for was the air ticket, and then I had like a close to $200 in my pocket, and that was good enough for me to carry through my education 2 years in Japan. And after that, I got a job there. So yes, I mean, I was fortunate, lucky enough to get the scholarship which basically paid for my tuition as well as gave me the stipend to for sustenance there.
Yes, like sir, my background is similar, like very similar like yours. Never had money to go to study private, and always, is grace of the God and help of many governments and many institutions that I followed very similar path like you. So the question here I have is when you're in Shinjuku, I mean like Japan, that's like heart of how was the work culture? Is Japanese people they say they work so hard. They're, I mean, very difficult. The foreigner can compete. How was your experience?
Um, Japan, I mean, Japan, there's two types of Japan. मैले जापानमा एउटा इन्टर्नसिप पनि गरेको थिएँ एउटा प्योर म्यानुफ्याक्चरिङ कम्पनी नागोया भन्ने एउटा I think it's the number three, number four city in Japan. So I spent like a 3 months there, but that was engineering. Even though I was doing an MBA, I couldn't get any internship. I got an engineering internship. So I just took that offer for the summer and I went to Nagoya. So that's a Japanese culture, Japanese corporate culture, kaisa culture. That's very harsh, particularly for foreigners, because they're super hardworking people, and they basically you know they definitely have a lot of admiration for that culture.
Right.
But after graduation, the job I got in the financial, so most of the time my language was English. My bosses were either European or American. So I never felt that pressure of the culture within the company because I was working for a Western company like Pricewaterhouse or Goldman. But yes, if you're working for a pure Japanese company, it's a very, very different culture, and sometimes very hard for the foreigners to adapt because it's in particularly in I mean Nepal India मान्छेहरूलाई होइन we find it because it's less open, it's more conservative, and they have their own way. I'm not trying to criticize or
Right.
appreciate, but they have their own way of carrying out things.
So for
So
them, I had some experience while I was म जति बेला चाइनामा काम गर्थेँ चाइनिज मेरो जापानिज क्लाइन्टहरू थियो तिनीहरूको बिहान 10 बजीदेखि अथवा 9 बजीदेखि सुरु भयो भने राति 9 बजीसम्म जाने they go to work, they go to meeting, then they have like a 2 hour tea break, and they will come back again. They will say, "Let's go to now dinner," and then you have dinner till like 2 hours. They drink, and then 10 hours. Then you are drunk. Now go house. That was
that
like,
was
is it like I'm saying correctly?
and I think that was You're right. That was an old Japan, but even Japan is changing now. They are basically trying to be more like a US in terms of that. There has to be work-life balance. So that realization is coming there, and they realize that by just overworking, you're not going to be competitive. So they are looking to change as well. But at the core, those things are still there. To be honest with you, again, I can view this. It's these things are very cultural, right? I mean,
Right,
if you look through you know the prism of Japanese culture is perfectly fine, but if you look through the Western culture, then you think it's not fine because you're not spending time with your family and kids. But yes, it's still there. And as a foreigner, yeah, you sometimes find it. A lot of foreigners they love it and they want to be in Japan forever. But
right.
some people they don't like it, and then they want to
Yeah,
try
get
opportunity outside Japan or work for a foreign companies within Japan because the work culture could be very different in a foreign company.
absolutely. So like I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. You have worked in Goldman Sachs for so long in New York, and such a very good department, risk management. That's like very important for the investment banking. You were working यो पिनेकल नै भन्छ यो मान्छेको ड्रिम हुन्छ कि गोल्डमान सक्समा गएर काम गर्नु हजुरले 16 वर्ष काम गर्नुभयो then why
19 वर्ष,
would
19, 20 years, close to 20 years.
20 years why you want to go to the World Bank where there's maybe is a change something you want to change or it was different what was a purpose driven there
तपाईँले भन्नुभयो होइन मैले पहिले पनि भने मैले I'm looking for change. Even now I want to learn new things too, and I did work there 20 years, but then I had that mental fatigue. I mean, I was managing director. I was a head of market risk department for the North America. There were like 50 people reporting to me, some MDs and some vice president reporting to me. So the job was pretty cushy. But then again, I had some mental fatigue because I was doing same thing for last 20 years because I was in risk and very specialized knowledge. Then I was looking for, there's other option. I can try a different, Goldman Sachs, like another companies, within New York City,
right
or try something very different. अनि यो अपर्च्युनिटी मैले इकोनोमिक्समा जेनरली हरेक वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कको जबहरू नि इकोनोमिक्समा आउँदैन. In this case, they did put advertisement in the Economist, and I saw this. And अब नेपालबाट आउने मान्छेहरूलाई होइन, जति बेला नेपालमा थिएँ मलाई गोल्डमेन स्याक्सको नाम पनि थाहा थिएन. Only name I knew that time is the World Bank or Asian Development Bank and all these banks.
right
So
right
definitely I had always like a long, dreamt for working for the World Bank. Even after when I graduated, मैले उहाँबाट निगाताबाट ग्रेजुएट भएपछि होइन, then I tried to apply for the World Bank, but I already had crossed the age limit because the way that time the program उनीहरूको World Bank को एउटा youth professional program भन्छ. अनि जति बेला मैले अप्लाई गरेको थिएँ त्यति बेला उनीहरूको क्राइटेरिया थियो कि you need to be under 29, but by the time you need to have a master's, plus you need to have a 3 years of professional experience. So I had the master when I was by 29, but the experiences that I have working at the Pulcher campus, that was not deemed as a professional experience, by the World Bank. And that was, I think, that was not so good. So I could not apply. So that door was shut down for me. I mean, I'm not saying I would have gotten then, but I could have applied then. Then I applied for a private sector job. I work for PricewaterhouseCoopers. And again, I don't go back and regret that, these were very enriching time for whatever I am today. And because I work at Pricewaterhouse and Goldman, because I learned a lot.
right right
So you're saying you're a near destination. Oh, I'm liking the job. And also the purpose is very different. It's a very mission driven organization. At the end of the day, the idea here is you're trying to help people, particularly the poor countries here. So I'm proud to be working for the institutions like World Bank, particularly in a time like this COVID pandemic, where the role of these multilateral agencies are really paramount.
did you have ever chance to meet late Dr. Sukhdev sir
Yes, I did have one like a brief meeting with him. I mean, very impressive guy. And that time he was working IMF. And I did have like a 2008, I think it was 2008 or 9. I don't recall exact time. That's when I met with him in New York City. One of the event that was organized by, I think is anti-event, anti-annual meeting or something. So that time also, there was a job opening at IMF, and I was told by my headhunter, okay, if you apply the job, because that time I still have a Nepalese nationality, Right now, I mean, I'm holding the US passport now. That's not a big advantage if you're applying for a job at the World Bank or IMF, just to let people know that if you still have a Nepalese passport, you have some advantage in terms of diversity. That's how they count the diversity there.
यो
अनि उहाँसँग मैले सोध्दै थिएँ सुखदेव सरसँग कि कस्तो छ जब अनि उहाँले जब चाहिँ निकै राम्रो छ तर by that time I had already said no, I want to stick to New York City, didn't want to move the family to DC, so it didn't work out. But very impressive guy, and also I have read a lot of his thoughts through MTT, Mother's think tank. Whenever he has a lot of radical ideas. Of course, he has reason to. I mean, I'm not saying that I share his views, but he was a pretty maverick, pretty fearless character, and you don't find those people, because even if I mean I had a lot of disagreement with him, but not I didn't disagree with him in public forum, but the way he was thinking. But at least he had something unique to offer, which is the good part of what he had to offer to the society.
एब्सोल्युटली सर म तपाईँको यो गोल्डम्यान साक्सको करियरको पिरियडमा लैजान चाहन्छु केही सर्टेन क्वेसनहरू आएको छ र सोध्न चाहन्छु अब अहिले जुन स्टक मार्केट अहिले रेकर्ड हाई भएको छ यसको मेन कारण के होला यस्तो कोरोनाको टाइममा पनि मान्छेहरूलाई यो सिम्पल जनरल सिटिजनहरूलाई यो माइन्ड बगलिङ यो वाइ द स्टक इज गोइङ when economy is not doing good, most of the small business are still not fully running, and what is the reason here?
Definitely, I can give you my views, but I would like to caveat that this is not
Yes,
the
sure,
view
sure,
of my
sure.
employer, the World Bank, because I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of World Bank.
Yeah, so this is
But
for
I
the
can no,
important.
so and then I'm love to give that my personal views. So yeah, के छ भने stock market ले के गर्छ भने जहिले पनि stock market is a more like a forward looking market. Stock market doesn't tell you what the economy is doing now or what the economy is going to do tomorrow. Stock market is going to tell you what the economy is going to do 6 months, 9 months down the road, and even beyond that. So that's what the stock market is pricing. And so far, the stock market was right. I mean, तपाईँले यही क्वेसन चाहिँ मार्च अप्रिल लास्ट इयर पनि जुन जुलाईमा पनि सोध्न सक्नुहुन्थ्यो कि किनभने तर स्टक मार्केट वाज राइट द्याट टाइम कि भ्याक्सिन हुन्छ अनि देन यु विल हेभ अ रिकभरी बुम एन्ड वी आर गोइङ थ्रु रिकभरी बुम आज मैले ड्राइभ गरेर रेस्टुरेन्टहरूमा तपाईँलाई यु वोन्ट गेट अ सिट इन द रेस्टुरेन्ट सो द युएस इज डुइङ फ्यान्टास्टिक बिकज द रिकभरी बुम इज देयर सो द स्टक मार्केट डिड करेक्टली प्राइस वाट्स ह्यापनिङ अब तपाईँले यहाँ अहिलेको प्राइस स्टक मार्केटको किन हाई छ भनेपछि स्टक मार्केटले इज टेलिङ यु द्याट कि होइन इकोनोमी चाहिँ इज गोन रिकभर फुल्ली पिपल विल हेभ जब्स एन्ड पिपल हेभ मनी टु स्पेन्ड एन्ड पिपल विल गोन स्पेन्ड मनी द्याट्स वाट द स्टक मार्केट इज गोन इज टेलिङ यु हाउएभर मैले एउटा कुरा भन्न चाहन्छु भने स्टक मार्केट prices things, it doesn't predict. Don't get confused that the stock market is going to be always right. भनेपछि अब अहिले मान्छेलाई सोध्यो भने two types of people. One people like a more like a naysayerहरूलाई सोध्यो भने they'll say the inflation is going to pick up and then it's going to be damaging to the stock market and it's not sustainable and it's going to collapse. The other camp of people, they will say that no, I mean it's sustainable, economy is going to come back and there won't be much inflation and things is going to be back to more or less normal, not but it's not going to crater drastically. भनेपछि मेरो विचारमा I'm more in the camp that nothing drastic is going to happen. I'm not saying the stock market is going to rally another 20% from here or it's going to fall 20%, but it's not going to it's going to stay range bound. That's what, at least based on my understanding, because US economy is recovering and it's going to recover quickly, but there are a lot of other cross current. Definitely will see a bouts of inflation that's coming, and that will put pressure on the Fed to raise rates, and probably they might have to raise the rates, but things were going to come under control quickly. So yes, the stock market might go through some corrections, but it's not going to be like a 40-50% correction that we saw back in March. If you recall, in March, that's the first New Year pandemic, and the stock market just it cratered. I don't expect those kind of things to happen again. More or less, I would say I'm more like a neutral. I'm not bullish or bearish on the stock market right now.
Right. So let me take you back a little bit, like 12 months. So when in the Trump factor, the China factor, stock, Corona, COVID factor, stock went really tank. And then the tariffs, those treaty, US, America, that was a big deal. That didn't fully, like right now, अहिले त्यो पनि भएको छैन, त्यसको इफेक्ट पनि आएको छैन। त्यसले फेरि युएस इकोनोमीलाई केही यो चाहिँ यो केयर्स एक्टको यो जुन फेडले पैसा पम्प गर्यो यो इकोनोमीमा, त्यसले गर्दाखेरि रोकेको हो कि यो तपाईँको इट वाज बिकज त्यो अब अहिले अहिले त इकोनोमीमा 3-4 ट्रिलियनको अब पैसा फेडले फेरि सुरुको दिनमा 6 महिना पनि पहिले गर्यो, अहिले पनि गर्दैछ, फेरि यो ट्रान्सपोर्टेसन बिल पनि ल्याउँदैछ। इज द्याट हेल्पिङ अ गुड बोल पिरियड? यो जनताको यो
होइन
घरको प्राइस पनि बढेको छ अहिले।
तपाईँले एउटा कुरा घरको प्राइस बढेछ एन्ड द्याट्स क्रिएटिङ द वेल्थ इफेक्ट। तपाईँ मान्छेहरू जसको 401k छ, that's looking good. If you have extra money, if you have stock investments, people are so bullish. There's a lot of optimism there. And definitely credit goes to the Fed and the fiscal policy, होइन सरकारले पनि होइन के भन्छ ट्रान्सफर पेमेन्ट कति $1400 को चेक चाहिँ मार्चमा होइन, if you're under like a, if your income is less than 70 or 120k or something, then you get that 100. That's all temporary support. त्यसले गर्दा होइन, I'm not sure the stock market is definitely reacting to, because the Fed has promised that Fed is not going to raise the rates for next 2 years until end of 2022. तर फेडले भन्ने मात्रै हो, तर अहिले इन्फ्लेसन आयो भने होइन मार्केटमा, then Fed will be in a bind. They'll be forced to, because that's the only tool they have. So
Right,
that's the, if I'm neutral, but the way I see the risk is that Fed might have to preemptively raise the rates. That's number one risk. And number two risk is just the market. भनौँ न, it's a lot of leverage in the system.
right,
I mean, and because अब तपाईँलाई होइन मान्छे, if you were trading stock, then you don't pay commissions. You can get a leverage on your with your stock brokerage account. So that means you can buy more than what you can afford through your cash. And so all this, the confluence of factor is helping. So there is some excesses as well, but I'm not super worried about all those stuff. So I'm not this, therefore I don't think predicting there's going to be a massive correction. There could be a correction could be 10-15%, but it's not going to be like 30-40%. But more or less it's going to be like up and down, but it's going to range bound. But it's still, I think so far it seems like more, it has a upward trend than downward trend. That's how the stock market is looking, unless until we get a new data, or suddenly you see, I mean, the new geopolitical risk, or the Fed has to hike the rates. Those are the risks there down the pike, and that's what we know. If you're somebody's investing in stocks, those are the things you should be aware of and you should be watchful of.
so तपाईँको विचारमा see, I'm in the mortgage business, so we watch the rate all the time, we watch the mortgage backed security. Right now even the mortgage bank are saying that we have to increase the rate because the housing price is so high, people cannot afford this income, like income growth does not support this price hike. What is your view here?
के छ भने financial market, there are a lot of self-correcting mechanism. तपाईँले जस्तो हाउसिङ मार्केटको कुरा गर्नु, there is a self-correcting mechanism, because affordability हुँदैन भने होइन, the rates low भए पनि अब घरको price चाहिँ 20%, 30% if it's increasing every year, and I'm sure you're in the real estate market, the prices are back to the 2006 level that we have seen. If you look at the Case-Shiller index, that's rising every year. That's the only thing that's kind of going up. So economic hisabले, that's a lot of optimism there. But then if the houses become unaffordable, or even the banks, again, you're the real estate professional, you know more than I do, but the banks are more concerned about giving you credit, because they know that these prices are going to come down.
Right,
So
right.
मैले के भन्न चाहन्छु भने, because of the affordability issue, because of the credit tightening from the bank, you'll see some kind of check and balance on the rising home prices. It's not going to go to the sky. अरू सब कुराहरू चेन्ज भएन भने at least there's a self correcting mechanism within the housing sector or real estate sector. Of course, Fedले raise यदि होइन interest rate बढाउँछ भने, then yeah, it's going to have impact on housing market, and it's going to basically it's going to be bad for the housing market. अरू भनौँ भने the financial market crashes because of some leverage issue, then it's going to be bad. Then we don't know. Maybe the rates could go down further. अब अहिले 30 year कति छ भनेपछि I think it's around 2.5% or 3%, right? So
Yeah, so right now between 2.5 हामीले अहिले 30 year लक गरिरहेको छ 2.75 2.875 2.99 depends on credit त्यसको अनुसार.
so the one way you could say that if the house stock market crashes, then yeah, the rates can come down. If that's what you wish, then yeah, that's the only way the rates could come down further, is the stock market has to crash now.
Just a quick question for you. If you have just say like you know mattress of money, you have, where do you put stock or housing? Where do you put? Just say if you have a choice right now, both.
I think it's a tough question. Probably, I mean, if I have a money, I would probably put in the stocks because I'm a risk person. So I want my portfolio to be liquid. That means I can pull it out when I want to.
Right.
Yes, if you invest in housing market and say the inflation does get materialized and the Fed does increase rates, what are you going to do? You're tied up there, right?
Right.
But the other side is, but there's a flip side as well. If there's a real inflation, then probably real estate is going to give you a better protection than the stock portfolio. So finance में के छ भने, nothing is binary. There's always a counter force. भनेपछि मैले भने होइन, if the liquidity को हिसाबले stock market is better, but the inflation really, if you have 4-5% inflation in this country, which is unlikely, then housing sector is a investment in the real estate is a better protection than stock market, because the stock market is going to crash. But alikati inflation भयो भने probably stock market is going to do much better than the real estate. But this is,
तर यो तपाईँको स्टक मार्केटमा सबैलाई अब नलेज हुँदैन, जस्ट लाइक मिडल क्लास अब भर्खर हामी आएको नेपालीहरूलाई, so they understand, they see the physical, the house they live, the people are offering, like I have seen my clients ask me put 100,000 50,000 extra, we don't even get the appraisal, but they want, this is a good strategy to build wealth in America, just like a real estate for the middle class, or they have to have very balanced portfolios to just to make it a risk reverse? You are the risk expert, so what do you suggest for the middle class Nepalese NRNs?
I mean, real estate when you don't know much about the stock market, अब तपाईँले mortgage दिएर, if you can rent the house out and you can generate enough cash flows, then the housing prices doesn't matter to you, right? I mean, if you have a positive cash flows, based on the amount you have put in as your equity and the mortgage rate, plus if you can ensure that you have a tenant occupied all the time, next 15-30 years, whatever the mortgage you have, then you are basically agnostic to the prices, right? Real estate prices 7% up, 20% down, you don't care because the cash flow आइरहेछ होइन. त्यो हिसाबले होइन, real estate is much simpler and much easier. But the problem is, if you do see real inflation, then that could be a problematic. But no, simple example. अहिले अब 2.75 मा, it's at least you cannot afford the house, but you can afford the mortgage. It's a little bit tricky. अहिले, if that rate becomes 5%, think about who is going to buy the house.
Yeah, the housing.
Nobody can afford the house with the 5%. त्यही मैले भन्न खोजेँ, भनेपछि के हुन्छ, the prices have to come down, right? अनि तपाईँलाई होइन, $1 million house needs to be sold. So that's so there's no easy answer. I wish there's an easy answer. Oh, if it goes up, comes down. No, the finance has. That's why finance भनेपछि you need to think about so many factors. There's so many cross currents. There's not one factor that if this happens, this is going to happen. But Tarab, Perry, what's the chances that rates are going to go 3-4%? The chances are close to not zero, but very small.
राइट राइट ओके
So
सो यो अब मलाई दुई तिनवटा क्वेसन छ त्यसपछि हामी एउटा
ल
ब्रेक लिउँला
ल हस्
त्यसपछि
ल
मलाई थुप्रो क्वेसनहरू आएको छ नेपालको बारेमा नेपालमा को यो किन रेट त्यति हाई छ त्यो अनि त्यसपछि यो अरू केरियरको लागि पनि केही क्वेसनहरू छ दुईवटा क्वेसन छ यो टेक्निकल क्वेसन वाट इज फ्लिप कर्भ यो फ्लिप कर्भ भनेको के हो यो यसले के इफेक्ट पर्छ इकोनोमीमा
फिलिप कर्भले बेसिकली होइन के भन्छ भने अब अनइम्प्लोइमेन्ट र इन्फ्लेसनको रिलेसनसिप भनेपछि के छ भने इन्भर्स रिलेसनसिप छ भनेपछि अनइम्प्लोइमेन्ट बढ्यो भने इन्फ्लेसन घट्छ अनि भाइस वर्सा होइन अब मान्छे बढी इम्प्लोइड भयो भने इन्फ्लेसन बढ्छ होइन भनेपछि होइन वेन लेबरको डिमान्ड बढी छ भने इन्फ्लेसन इज गोन गो अप if the labor demand is low the inflation is going to go down that's what the phillips curve says तर फिलिप्स कर्भको कन्सेप्ट चाहिँ पुरानो भइसक्यो अब दिस इज नट हाउ द मार्केट इज बिहेभिङ
राइट
फर इक्जाम्पल अहिले अब लास्ट फ्राइडे तपाईँको पेरोल डेटा आएको थियो त्यो हिसाबले अनइम्प्लोइमेन्ट चाहिँ बढेछ युएसमा बट देन आफ्टर द न्युज इन्फ्लेसन वेन्ट अप भनेपछि अहिलेको मार्केट चाहिँ होइन इट्स नट behaving I mean that Phillips curve has become more like a flat line or it's not acting the way it should act
सो अहिले तपाईँको त मलाई मेरो विचारमा त अहिले धेरै मान्छे अनएम्प्लोइड छ अस्ति चाहिँ ट्रम्पको पारामा तपाईँको अलमोस्ट जिरो के अरे अनएम्प्लोइड थियो अहिले चाहिँ अब धेरै नै छ अझै अझै अहिले तर जिडिपी अहिले ग्रोथ 6% छ भनेपछि अहिलेको बेलालाई के भनिन्छ फ्लिप कर्भ यो कहाँ छ अहिले कुन ठाउँमा छ अब अनएम्प्लोइमेन्ट पनि धेरै छ अब इन्फ्लेसन पनि खास धेरै बढाएको छैन अझै पनि अन्डर 2% भन्छ
सिम्पल ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा के छ भने अहिले कुनै पनि इकोनोमिक्स थ्योरी काम गर्दैन the market is going through the structural changes all those theories or principles that people have learned over time in fact there's a lot of question about whether the conventional economics still works whenever economy is no longer is industrialized economy it's not a farm economy this is the digital economy new economy those things labor force plant capital those things don't apply as much these days this is a very different world on top of that, we're going through the structural changes because a lot of structural changes have happened or happening through the economy. There's a lot of data that's coming, it's a noisy data. Therefore, nobody's relying on just the economic model to predict that what's going to happen because then it's going to be foolish because there's so much of noise in the system.
Right. So right now you are saying that right now this all these big data, AI, automation, machine learning, they are replacing the labor force. This current labor force will be outdated in maybe 10, 15 years. Government have to think like universal, income. Just like before some presidential candidate was saying that actually here in Silicon Valley, in Oakland, they're experimenting. What if we give like $2,000 for this family, thousands of family? How they react? Do you think like in the future, America is maybe in very close to universal income system that you have to pay because there will be no jobs or because of these industrialization, machine learning and automation, AI?
अब अमेरिकामा भनौँ न अनि अमेरिका इन पर्टिकुलर इनइक्वालिटी बढ्दैछ होइन धनी भनेपछि दे गेटिङ मच रिचर एन्ड द पुअर गेटिङ मच पुअर भनेपछि there's a lot of gap between the debtor and the saver भनेपछि the way the trend is going to be the taxes are going to be high you'll see expansion of the entitlement program so in general doesn't matter which government is there Republican or Democrat the tendency is US is going to be fiscally left means bigger government more government aided transfer program and that's the only way to bridge this inequality but the economy is going to be more it used to be very much capitalist economy but the way if you ask a lot of people it's the economy is going to be more redistributive going forward because that's the only way to bridge the gap of wealth income and opportunity between the elite in the US and not so elite.
So you are saying that maybe just what I interpreted is New York is slowly becoming Paris.
Yes. So it's going to be like the US, the tax wise, it's going to be more like Canada, more like Europe. The tax is going to go up.
Right.
and because that's the only way out. I mean, the other way out is inflation. So that's what I think the Biden administration looking to do, increase the taxes to pay for all the program, right? Some you
Right.
have to pay for something, but it's not about Biden or anybody. It's just that's how it's going to be, because you need to fund this stuff,
Right.
and if there's a lot of inequality in the society, then you have to take care of the poor. And if you don't take care of the poor, they'll vote you out of the power. That's how it's as simple as
Right.
that.
Just like
So you have to cater to the median voter, whatever the voter wants. It's a universal. It doesn't apply to America only. It applies to every country in the world. भनेपछि हैन, if you are in, therefore I know in general the prediction is, unless you see a miracle, you'll see more distributive economy in the USA.
all right. So you the last question before we take a break. यो नेगेटिभ इन्ट्रेस्ट रेट भनेको के हो सर? यो धेरै यो कोभिडभन्दा पहिले चाहिँ यसको धेरै कुराहरू भइरहेको थियो। नेगेटिभ इन्ट्रेस्ट पनि यहाँ पनि आउन सक्छ, जस्तै कि जापानमा छ, युरोपमा छ, यद्यपि ग्रोथ छैन। यो कस्तो इन्ट्रेस्ट रेट हो र कति बेला यसको इम्प्लिमेन्टेसन हुने सम्भावना धेरै हुन्छ?
अब नेगेटिभ इन्ट्रेस्ट रेट भनेपछि के छ भने, मेनली होइन, अब स्विडेन भनेपछि होइन, तपाईँले अब मोर्गेज लिनुभयो होइन, मोर्गेज नेगेटिभ इन्ट्रेस्ट रेटमा लिनेको अर्थ के हो भने, तपाईँले घर पनि पाइन्छ अनि you'll get money paid every month. That's what the negative interest rate is. भनेपछि negative interest rate is a mechanism devised by the central bank होइन, to spur the economic growth. भनेपछि तपाईँले कार किन्न जानुभयो भने, and you don't have to pay anything, rather you pay zero interest rate or negative interest rate, when that's unlikely भनौँ न, even though rate negative भएपछि तपाईँको क्रेडिटको हिसाबले तपाईँले zero भनेपछि you don't pay any interest rate and you get a car, and that's good for the economy.
Right, right. So
You
you can
go to the bank, you get
right.
the mortgage with no interest rate. भनौँ न, if you, just imagine
0%
today.
0% डाउन 0% इन्ट्रेस्ट रेट भन्नुभएको।
Yes.
अनि त्यसपछि ब्याङ्कले कसले पे गर्छ त? त्यो उसले गभर्नमेन्टले पे गर्छ?
because ब्याङ्कले होइन, yes, युरोपमा त्यही भइरहेछ। ब्याङ्क simple अर्थ, ब्याङ्कले don't get paid by anybody. Therefore, the negative interest rate is very damaging to the bank.
Oh, I see.
Because ब्याङ्कलाई पैसा बनाउनको लागि होइन, bank needs to have a positive interest rate
Right.
होइन, yield curve has to be positive. भनेपछि नेगेटिभ इन्ट्रेस्ट रेटको सर्टमा यही भन्न चाहन्छु भने, this is an experiment. Most of the people think that it's failed in Japan, failed in Europe, and it's not going to work in the US because US has other constraint as well. Yeah, money market fund and money market fund when you put the money in, at least you want to get the par amount, $100 out. Negative interest rate भनेपछि तपाईँले $100 राख्नु भने, when you withdraw the money, I will get 99 or $0.99. So that's a loss to you. Therefore, it could go all the way to zero, but the negative interest rate, the chances in the US is low. But the purpose is to spur the economy. But this is a failed model elsewhere. The banking sector is going to suffer. But in the risk management, we said never say never. Anything could be possible. But
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. अब एउटा हामी छोटो ब्रेक लिन्छौँ, फेरि आउँछौँ सर।
sure.
अलराइट श्रोताहरू, तपाईँ सुन्दै हुनुहुन्छ रेडियो नेपाली अमेरिका फ्रम द हार्ट अफ सिलिकन भ्याली। आज हामी बिच हुनुहुन्थ्यो हाम्रो वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कमा काम गर्ने एकजना एनआरएन, उहाँ सिराहाबाट हुनुहुन्छ र यहाँ युएसमा लास्ट मोर देन 20 इयर्स यहाँ काम गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ श्री अरविन्द झाजी। उहाँले हाम्रो यो आजको यो अमेरिका इकोनोमी, स्टक मार्केट उहाँले बताउनु भयो, धेरै कुरा यहाँ तपाईँ एकदम इन्फर्मेटिभ छ। यो प्रोग्राम फेरि तपाईँले युट्युबमा गएर रेडियो नेपाली युएसए फेरि सुन्न सक्नुहुन्छ। अहिले तपाईँसँग कुनै क्वेसन छ, अब नेक्स्ट टर्नमा हामी क्वेसन सोध्नेछौँ नेपालको इकोनोमी बारेमा, नेपालको जुन अहिले इकोनोमिक फर्मुला छ र त्यसको बारेमा उहाँ के भ्यू छ, र यो क्रिप्टो करेन्सी र यो बिटकोइन कहाँ कसरी उहाँ के भ्यू हेर्दै हुनुहुन्छ, त्यसको लागि तपाईँसँग केही क्वेसन छ भने मलाई टेक्स्ट गर्नुहोस् 4083730603। म तपाईँको क्वेसन उहाँलाई सोध्नेछु र उहाँले लाइभ एन्सर दिन सक्नुहुन्छ र तपाईँले डाइरेक्टली सुन्न पाउनुहुन्छ। अगेन तपाईँ सुन्दै हुनुहुन्छ रेडियो नेपाली अमेरिका। हामी एउटा सानो गीत बजाउँदैछौँ र त्यसपछि अर्को सेकेन्ड चरणको प्रोग्राम सुरु गर्नेछौँ। थ्याङ्क यू। र आज यो हाम्रो कोरोनाको महामारीको टाइममा धेरै सबैको मनमा शान्ति र सबैको सुस्वास्थ्यको लागि सबैको स्पिडी रिकभरीको लागि म अर्को भजन बजाउन गइरहेको छु र त्यसपछि यो प्रोग्राम सुरु गर्नेछु र त्यो भजन बजाउनुभन्दा पहिले म चाहिँ हाम्रो प्रोड्युसर सुजनजीलाई यो आजको हाम्रो स्पोन्सरको लागि फेरि एकचोटि भनिदिनको लागि म आग्रह गर्छु
ओके जय सो आजको हाम्रो स्पोन्सर पार्टनर हुन्छ काठमाडौँको जिन र उहाँहरूको फोन नम्बर रहेको छ 408-649-3616 र उहाँहरूको फोन नम्बर म फेरि दोहोऱ्याउन गइरहेको छु उहाँहरूको फोन नम्बरको रहेको छ 408-649-3616 र उहाँहरूको यो काठमाडौँको जिन मिलपिटसमा रहेको छ र एभ्रिडे उहाँहरूले चाहिँ 11 AM देखि लिएर चाहिँ राति 11:30 बजेसम्म चाहिँ ओपन गर्नुहुनेछ र कुनै पनि क्याटरिङको लागि बर्थडे पार्टी सेलिब्रेसनको लागि उहाँहरूले चाहिँ यो रेस्टुरेन्ट चाहिँ सर्भिसमा गरिरहनु भएको छ र कुनै पनि फुडको निडको लागि चाहिँ अवश्य पनि काठमाडौँको जिल्ला सम्झिनु
मिठो खानको लागि सम्झिनुहोस्
काठमाडौँको जिन
र उहाँको त राम्रो हो त्यो एउटा सानो 50 जना जतिको त के भन्छ यो पार्टी हल पनि छ
पार्टी हल पनि छ
मिठो खाने इम्पोसिबल मोमो है
इम्पोसिबल मोमो चाहिँ या दैट वन
अब अहिले त नेपाल जान बन्द छ त्यही पनि अब टिकट यदि समरको लागि बुक गर्न चाहनुहुन्छ भने
समरको लागि बुक गर्न चाहनुहुन्छ भने हाम्रो टिकटको लागि चाहिँ जेन ट्राभललाई चाहिँ अवश्य सम्झिनु होला
एब्सोल्युटली
र जेन ट्राभलको फोन नम्बर रहेको छ 2025521508
अलराइट सुजन थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच बिना स्पोन्सर हाम्रो प्रोग्राम चल्दैन यदि तपाईहरू हाम्रो प्रोग्राममा एड दिन चाहनुहुन्छ या गफ गर्न चाहनुहुन्छ इन्टरभ्यू दिन चाहनुहुन्छ तपाईँको बर्थडे अथवा एनिभर्सरीको पालि पनि एडभर्टाइज दिन चाहनुहुन्छ भने प्लिज कल गर्नुहोस् मेरो फोन नम्बर हो 4083730603 अब बजाउँदैछु एउटा राम्रो भजन र त्यसपछि फेरि प्रोग्राम सुरु हुनेछ रेडियो नेपाली अमेरिका सिलिकन भ्यालीबाट म तपाईँको होस्ट जेपी मण्डल प्रत्येक शनिबार 7 बजेदेखि लिएर 9 बजेसम्म यो पेसिफिक स्ट्यान्डर्ड टाइममा म प्रोग्राम ल्याउँछु र स्पेसली एभ्री डे वी हेभ ए स्पेसल गेस्ट र उहाँहरूको स्टोरी हामी तपाईँको मनोरञ्जनको लागि र तपाईँको इन्फर्मेसनको लागि हामी बुझाउँछौँ यसमा धेरै राम्रा राम्रा कन्टेन्ट र धेरै सक्सेसफुल हाम्रा स्पिकरहरूले आफ्नो स्टोरी बताउनुहुन्छ र it's very informative. So if you have any guest you like me to bring, please text me. यदि यसमा एडभर्टाइज गर्न चाहनुहुन्छ भने मलाई फोन गर्नुहोस् 4083730603 अगेन हामी ल्याउँदैछौँ हाम्रो गेस्टलाई अब दोस्रो चरणमा र अब क्वेसनहरू तपाईँको छ भने सोध्नुहोस् 4083730603 मा टेक्स्ट गरेर मलाई पठाउन सक्नुहुन्छ सो सर अब हामी यो दोस्रो चरणमा आइपुगेका छौँ अब यो चरणमा अब तपाईको यसो यो तपाईको जुन जब छ स्ट्रेस बढी हुन्छ हाउ डु यु म्यानेज योर स्ट्रेस
स्ट्रेस भनेपछि त हैन इट्स अ पार्ट अफ लाइफ हैन स्ट्रेसलाई अब हैन I do work out. I mean, I go for a daily walk, like I do swim, and I practice Tai Chi. And I've learned Tai Chi. I've spent like almost 3 years, so I've attained some level of proficiency there.
You mean that Tai Chi that was banned in China? That's the one you are talking about?
Yes.
Way of releasing and sucking the air from the universe?
Yes.
Do you like that?
Yes, it's very different. It's like a moving meditation. Ani mo चाहिँ meditation पनि गर्छु हैन तर I'm not a regular one. त्यही हो but at the end of the day stress भनेपछि हैन there are things you don't have control over and you just let it go. That's what it is. That's the secret recipe for managing the stress, right? There are things that you can control and then you try to do your best there. I mean, to manage the situation or mitigate the risk. But then there are things, where you just beyond your power or beyond your reach, and just you let it go and a lot of time, I know, in general, you realize that a lot of stress in life is totally unwarranted because you're too worried about future, too worried about some adverse circumstances or adverse scenarios. But most of the time, those things don't happen. But we're just human beings, you know.
So in the अब तपाईले यसो के भन्छ यो काम बाहेक रमाइलोको लागि के गर्नुहुन्छ?
More रमाइलोको लागि, I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and sometimes I love nature. भनेपछि म I try to at least once or twice a year I try to go out on vacation. It doesn't have to be the expensive place, but it has to be close to the nature, either water or mountain, and that's what gives me a lot of energy and a lot of inspiration to move forward.
Right, right.
Uh,
तपाईँको तपाईँको फेभरेट भोजन के हो? के खानुहुन्छ? Like you look like very sharp. You're like financial Vivekananda for Madhya or maybe Nepal or maybe so
more, I don't eat because I don't eat traditional khana. I know I love bhat dal. That's my still my say the favorite food. But I can eat anything. That's what it is, you know. But a
you
lot of time I try to eat healthy because I'm getting older and I'm borderline diabetic and all this stuff because it's an age factor and my it's a hereditary as well. But I try to take balanced food, but doesn't have to be bhat dal or Nepali khana.
तपाईँको त्यो धेरै जापानिज सुसी खाने बानीबाट पनि स्मार्ट भने त्यो जापानिज तपाईँको त्यो के तिनीहरू त भयङ्कर हरहरू खान्छ नि कस्तो लाग्छ तपाईँको जापानिज खाना?
Well, I love Japanese food. Definitely, I'm once a week. I do take Japanese food, mainly the sushi. I love them. उनीहरू होइन generally they're on the healthier side. किनभने हाम्रो खानामा के छ भने in general अब घरको अब पकाउने स्टाइलमा डिपेन्ड गर्छ तर हाम्रो खानामा चाहिँ फ्याट चाहिँ एकदम बढी हुन्छ होइन इन जेनरल तेलको युज हुन्छ तर जापानिज खानामा के छ भने तेलको युज चाहिँ कम हुन्छ तर सल्ट इज अ लट सुसी भनेपछि जापानिज खानामा सल्ट उनीहरूले मोस्ट अफ द जापानमा अब मान्छेहरूको के भन्छ हाई
They live longer. I mean,
they live longer but they die because of the salt intake. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, they eat a lot of salt.
उनीहरूको खानामा सल्टको एकदम बढी प्रचलन हुन्छ के even compared to us. So that's but then they have other healthier stuff. हामी चाहिँ fat and salt हाम्रो खानामा salt चाहिँ हुन्छ जापानिज खाना भन्दा कम हुन्छ तर but still higher than the regular intake. भनेपछि खाना I'm not like I eat everything and I can because I'm based in DC and my family is still New Jersey, so like 4 or 5 days I'm on my own and I don't cook anything. So for me, I mean, it's like a sandwich and I just make avocado sandwich or just say cut some fruits for myself or just say make quick lentil. So I'm pretty kind of flexible that way.
I see. So यो तपाईले यो इन्टरटेनमेन्टलाई के गर्नुहुन्छ? गाना साना गाउनुहुन्छ, यो फिल्म हेर्नुहुन्छ, के गर्नुहुन्छ?
Well, entertainment like Ghana change sunchu, but usually I love listening to the old music, old songs, Hindi songs, that's and Nepali songs as well. That's what I listen to. That's my.
म तपाईलाई टेस्ट गर्न चाहन्छु. म तपाईलाई एउटा मैथिली गीत बजाउँदैछु. तपाई भन्नुस् यो कसले गाएको? हाम्रो
Okay.
सोच ठंड सोहर के जान सोहर के जान पराती भोर दिन पर स्वर्ग सने मिला था आवान का स्वर्ग सने धरती पर इंद्रधनुषी रंग समेत फसल इंद्रधनुषी रंग समेत फसल कोयली गीत सुनावे अपनी हाथी की लो के मिथिला गाम जनकपुर धाम स्वर्ग नाचे धरती पर वही ठाम
सर ई ककर गाना छियै के गाना छै
नहीं हम कब ई जो उदित नारायण जी छथिन कि हम नहीं गेस नहीं कर सकै छी
नहीं नहीं उदित नहीं छियै अहाँके मुरलीधर जी
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा
बहुत बहुत नीक गाबै छथिन हुनकर गाना
अच्छा
अहाँ तऽ अपने कथी कहै छै मैथिलीमे कविता सब तऽ लिखै छियै
नहीं हम मैथिली में कविता नहीं लिखै छी मैथिली बजै छी बढ़िया बट कविता तविता नहीं लिखै छी ना
अहाँके फेमस मतलब अहाँ बहुत रीड करै छियै तऽ अहाँके फेवरेट रीड करै लागि पुस्तक सब की छियै कोन लैंग्वेज साहित्य
साहित्य में लिटरेचरो से बेसी हमरा बेसिकली जे मतलब मेन हम फाइनेंसे के लिटरेचर से पढ़लहुँ तो फाइनेंसे के किताब सब मतलब टेक्निकल होइ छै नहीं टेक्निकल तो वह सब हम बेसी पढ़लहुँ नॉवल वोवल तो में हम सब नहीं छी मतलब लिटरेचर के कम लिटरेचर हम कम पढ़ै छी या कम पढ़ने छी
अहाँके सुरुसँ लए कऽ मतलब तपाईँको बिहानदेखि बेलुकी सुत्नुभन्दा पहिलेको दिनचर्या तपाईँले सेयर गर्न मिल्छ हाम्रो लागि बिकज आई वान सी लाइक हाउ मेनी पिपल क्यान मेबी लर्न फ्रम यर लाइफ स्टोरी तपाईँको बिहान कति बजी उठ्नुहुन्छ कति बजी त्यो बिचमा के गर्नुहुन्छ कसरी टाइम म्यानेज बिकज दिस इज भेरी टाइम म्यानेजिङ र तपाईँले एकदम कन्टिन्युस मोनिटर गर्नुपर्छ के यो रिस्क म्यानेजमेन्ट कस्तो हुन्छ तपाईँको दिनचर्या
अब खास मेरो दिनचर्या चाहिँ के छ भने मेरो लाइफस्टाइलमा के भन्छ भने I want to keep myself very disciplined. Discipline भनेपछि at least within a day, at least I need to have an hour for workout. Either I stroll outside, I'll go for swim, or I go for tai chi, or do something. So that's and it doesn't have to be in the morning, evening, but by before I go to bed. So usually I wake up 6:30. But this is the dincharya aileko ho. But when I was in New York City, my dincharya I used to wake up at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. That I did for 16 years.
इभन
By
इन द
five,
स्नो
even
इभन
on
स्नो
snow,
टाइम
even on snow day, and 5:20 a.m. I'll take my train to New York City. I live in used to live in I mean I still live in Princeton, and then I come at home at 7:30, and then I help my wife with my household chores or ferrying kids to the different classes, and by 10:30 I'll have dinner and go to bed, and then I'll find a time at least half an hour 45 minutes to work out, or I'll work out during my office time. अहिले चाहिँ भने के छ भने पेन्डेमिकमा I'm working from home, so I wake up a little bit late, like a 6:30 or 6:30, and then I help my kids to get ready for the school, and then after that I go back to my meetings, and then during the day I try to find at least an hour to walk my dogs for 5-6 miles, or I go for a swim myself. It depends on the day. It doesn't matter whether rain or shine. I love the day when it's snowing, love the day when it's raining, going outside, because that's when I enjoy most. And when it's cold, that's my that's when I love, because there's nobody on the street anywhere. I'm on my own.
तपाईँको त एक्सट्रिम वर्कआउट रहेछ
Extreme China, because I work moderate. When I walk got you at a modest pace. I'm not a jogger. I don't work out on treadmill. And I but the swim is, of course, is extreme work. And then you have to swim there. It takes effort. But most of the time I walk. That's my exercise. And then then I try to do lunch,
सो
and
सर
nothing big. I mean, it's not unusual. It's a usual lifestyle. I'm not saying my lifestyle is, but one thing I want to make sure that I want to keep myself at least 45 minutes to 1 hour just to do some kind of physical activity during the day, because I need that to make me feel good. Otherwise, I don't feel great.
सो अर्को क्वेसन सर यो हाम्रो एमाजोनको सिइओ जफ बेजेटले भन्नुहुन्छ कि you have to sleep 8 hours. So if you have your brain is fully rested, you make good decisions. अब तपाईँको त डिसिजन आफ्टर डिसिजन बनाउनुपर्छ तपाईँको दिनचर्या हेर्दाखेरि you hardly sleep 6 hours. Is that affects you or no?
I used to sleep 6 hours, but આજકાલ pandemic, I'm sleeping 7 to 8 hours, which is much better. I think my body is much more rested. My mind is much more rested. My cognitive skills are much more better in pandemic than it was before. But I agree with the Beju Sangaki, मान्छेलाई 7-8 घण्टा चाहिँ सुत्नै पर्छ। सुत्ने के भने मेरो विचारमा I learned Tai Chi because I was having some physical pain in my back and shoulder. So my doctor advised me, he's an Indian doctor, he advised me that you have to learn Tai Chi because he saw some magazine that learning Tai Chi helps alleviate those pain. So I started learning Tai Chi, and what it helped me with the sound sleep. So
Wow,
think about the Tai Chi is helping me to have a sound sleep,
that's
and that sound sleep helped me in terms of I was on some medications, and then some weird medication they put me under because in this country, the moment you have pain and you go complain to your doctor, they'll write you all those
yeah, right.
medication that you don't want to take. And then that helped me whenever you sleep is powerful. I mean, sleep is good for your heart health. Sleep is good for the restoration of your body tissue. That's when body change restore huncha. भनेपछि I completely agree with that. And personally as myself, म यदि 7 घण्टा 6.5 घण्टा भन्दा कम सुत्यो भने then next day I'll have issue with thinking and with my cognitive skills भनेपछि that's but there are people who are absolutely fine even with the 5 hours of sleep. So that again different type people. I'm of those type who needs like adequate sleep.
Right, like this Elon Musk, he doesn't even sleep, hardly sleeps. This guy is a monster, the extreme everything. So anyhow, so हजुरको यो वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कमा के को रोल गर्नुहुन्छ? What really you do there?
मेरो चाहिँ जब चाहिँ म चाहिँ के भन्छ भने मार्केट रिस्क डिपार्टमेन्ट छ. That's what I had there. अनि मार्केट रिस्क डिपार्टमेन्ट भनेपछि होइन अब वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कमा त हाम्रो ब्यालेन्स सिट छ ठुलो. टोटल वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कको ब्यालेन्स सिट कति क्लोज टु 500 बिलियन ब्यालेन्स सिट छ. अनि ब्यालेन्स सिट भनेपछि लट अफ रिस्क हुन्छ होइन. ब्यालेन्स सिटमा मार्केट रिस्क हुन्छ, काउन्टर पार्टी रिस्क हुन्छ. अनि मेरो काम चाहिँ त्यही त्यो रिस्कलाई ओभरसी गर्ने, ओभरसाइट दिने अनि मेक स्योर द्याट बिकज वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्क इज a triple A rated entity, make sure that there's not a lot of risk taking and risk is under control so that we preserve our financial rating or financial integrity.
So यो वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्क भन्यो कि नन प्रफिट हो कि प्रफिट हो कि यो कसरी यसको फन्डिङ हुन्छ, कसलाई लोन दिन्छ, what is requirement criteria?
World Bank भनेपछि either neither for profit nor non-profit. It's somewhere in between. World Bank को के छ भने philosophy चाहिँ World Bank does lending and does generate some income, but that income is redeployed in development lending. भनेपछि initial capital चाहिँ होइन, it was came from the rich countries like US, Japan, France, UK. अनि त्यसपछि इनिसियल क्यापिटल बनेपछि त्यो क्यापिटलबाट होइन वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्क इज borrows from the market and lends to the countries. That's what it does. So that's what my job is as well, to make sure that the borrowing is correct and so that we can lend to the borrowing countries. And when it lends to the countries, it charges interest rate plus some spread. And that is spread is to meet the expenses that we need for the World Bank, for example, paying for my salary. अनि in that process, also World Bank generates some profit. It's not like a profit like in private sector. The purpose here is not to maximize the profit. It's more to maximize the development impact. भनेपछि mission चाहिँ it's very different here. It's not driven by profit. भनेपछि अब simple term भन्यो भने नेपाललाई अब लोन चाहिन्छ भने वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कले is willing to lend at 75 less than 1% भनौँ. But वर्ल्ड नेपालले अब न्युयोर्कमा आएर लोन लियो भने नेपाललाई कमसे कम 15% लोन चार्ज गर्छ नेपाललाई लोन दिनलाई, प्राइभेट सेक्टर इन्स्टिट्युसन. भनेपछि वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्क प्रोभाइड्स सब्सिडाइज lending, generally subsidized lending to poor countries to help them, with the development agenda.
Right. So यो वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्क, IMF र यो ADB भन्छ नि, what is difference? Like how it works with the developing countries?
World Bank भनेपछि more like a development bank, and it's lends all the countries all over across the globe. Asian Development Bank is already in the business of lending to the Asian countries, but ADB is a regional development bank. World Bank is a global development bank. IMF is a little bit different. IMF को काम चाहिँ के हो भने they basically to watch the financial stability भनेपछि हैन foreign exchange कस्तो छ हैन यदि foreign exchange crisis हुन्छ भने then IMF will lend money to any countries, like for example Argentina मा crisis भयो थियो अनि then IMF lent money to Argentina, but the World Bank lends money only for the development purposes generally.
So you mean
That's
to
the main.
say, so you mean to say, for example, the नेपालमा हाइवे प्रोजेक्ट बनाउनु पर्यो होइन, हाइवे प्रोजेक्टको लागि, हाइड्रोको लागि, ट्रान्समिसन लाइनको लागि जुन अहिले एमसिसीले दिइरहेको छ त्यस्तोमा वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कले पैसा दिन्छ?
It depends. World Bank को आफ्नै agenda. World Bank is a multilateral. अब MCC भनेपछि I think it's more like a US based organization.
Right.
World Bank, it's a multilateral, and therefore it's different. It's not lending by the US or lending by UK or lending by China. It's lending by the World Bank, and that's why it's called World Bank. So yes, if the development projects are, it fits the criteria of the World Bank. भनेपछि World Bank lending को लागि बार पनि अलि हाई छ के, किनभने बेसिकली अब particular country X country Y country लाई lend गर्न सक्छ हैन, and they might not have any criteria, they can lend because they want to lend. तर World Bank भनेपछि you have to meet certain criteria, and then then only the World Bank will be able to provide you the funding or lending.
So it is only to the government, not to the private sector, not to the any profit making company.
सही हो, त्यो only to the government.
राइट. जस्तै फर इक्जाम्पल तपाईँको म अस्ति भर्खर गाउँ गएको थिएँ, राजविराज सिराहा यिनीहरूमा विराटनगर अल दिस प्लेसेस. ल मानव इक्जाम्पलले तपाईँकै गाउँको कुरा गरौँ, सिराहाको. सिराहामा तपाईँको यो चारै नगरपालिकामा ढल गर्नु पर्यो, रोड बनाउनु पर्यो, के त्यसको त्यहाँको लोकल डिस्ट्रिक्ट अथवा त्यो प्रदेशले थ्रु द नेपाल गभर्मेन्ट दे क्यान सिक फर अ लोन?
Pradesh government, I'm not sure about the legal structure. Usually the World Bank talks to the Ministry of Finance. So if the Pradesh government they have the idea, they need the funding, they can approach Artha Mantralaya, Ministry of Finance in Nepal, and the Ministry of Finance can talk to the World Bank. Because at the end of the day, even though Pradesh दुईको ले borrow गर्छ money, at the end of the day, from World Bank perspective, they're lending money to the government of Nepal, not to the government of Pradesh too.
Right. Okay. भनेपछि सेन्ट्रल गभर्मेन्ट थ्रु जानु पर्यो त्यहाँ मेमोरेन्डम.
Exactly.
त्यो धेरै ब्युरोक्रेटिक भएपछि त्यहाँ करप्सन हुने धेरै चान्स हुन्छ. तपाईँहरूले यो करप्सन इन्डेक्सलाई हेर्नुहुन्छ त? वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कले हेर्नुहुन्छ तपाईँहरू?
त्यो एउटा यो चाहिँ राम्रो क्वेसन हो, तर त्यही वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्क, द्याट्स हाउ वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्क इज डिफरेन्ट. भनेपछि वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कको लागि क्राइटेरियाहरू मिट हुनुपर्छ होइन, प्रोजेक्टमा कुनै पनि करप्सन हुनु हुँदैन त भने दिस इज नट कोसर फ्रम द वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्क पर्सपेक्टिभ होइन. अनि प्रोजेक्ट चाहिँ सुड मिट द इन्भाइरोमेन्टल क्राइटेरिया भनेपछि there are number of criteria, and that needs to be met before a country could be eligible for the World Bank loan.
So you're like a kind of Marwari, they don't give loan when they need it. You want a perfect client. So what is a perfect client, sir? Most of the countries are going through this phase, ups and down, instability, like sometimes even natural disaster, now COVID, look in Nepal situation. So is that is very kind of designed to help or designed to just maintain a status quo? What do you see? I feel that a lot of people have this kind of negative sentiment about the World Bank in regards to the developing countries.
The World Bank model ke hone, because it's a AAA rated entity, nobody could default to the World Bank. If somebody default to the World Bank, then probably the World Bank AAA rating is going to be at risk.
Right.
AAA entity भएपछि मार्केटबाट सस्तो रेटमा वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्कले पैसा borrow गर्न सक्छ.
Right.
And that's the money it can lend to the countries. But if the countries want money willy-nilly for their own purposes, and there could be a lot of other regions, and for some reason they over borrow and they are not able to pay back to World Bank. Because of one country, the whole business model could collapse. Then think about, because of Nepal, Nigeria is suffering. That's not fair to Nigeria, or vice versa, right?
Right.
Therefore, you need certain guardrails there to protect everybody, not just the World Bank. It's World Bank is like a cooperative. It's not owned by America or China or UK. It's a cooperative. Of course, if you have a contributed more, you have a bigger share in that cooperative. It's like for mutual protection. नत्र भने होइन, every country, every government in the world, they want to borrow as much they could, right?
Right,
But
right.
then the World Bank job is to make sure how much they are the borrowing capacity, so-called debt sustainability. So the World Bank is basically at the end of the day is working in the interest of country. If Nepal भन्छ मलाई 25 billion चाहियो भने, and the World Bank knows that no way Nepal could pay back that much, then World Bank is going to put all kind of conditions. But if they know that they can pay back, then probably the conditions are going to be more relaxed, right? So
Right,
also and also last point, n- just so Nepal is no longer the what do you call them, in the
the
lowest income countries. It has moved up in the ladder, but the World Bank does provide grant to the country. Grant means free money.
you don't have
So
to
there's
okay,
there's the other side of the World Bank. It's called IDA. They provide grant to the countries who cannot afford a loan. Loan when you have to pay back, you have to pay interest. So that
right,
schema is there. So the mission and mandate is still great. The people who cannot afford money or loan, they'll get free money. The people who could afford little bit, they'll get at a lower subsidized rate. And people like India and China, they can afford, they get at the highest rate. So there is a gradation there. It's not like a same rate to everybody.
right. So the government has to provide any collateral because we also see that like ability when we do the loans, we see that ability to pay is like a ability to like we see that when this guy has a job or not and what kind of things. So you guys also look for the which country has how much GDP, how is minus or plus or surplus, those kind of stuff, or the taxation system, their financial system or no?
Of course, the loan, because we have to, I mean, the World Bank, when it lends money, it has to make sure that it's going to get the money back, right?
Right.
And therefore, it has to do some kind of underwriting. It's not underwriting because it's a cooperative. The mandate is to lend, not to say, oh, I don't like the politics in the country. I don't like these people. No, no, no. It has to be fair in lending, and it's at the end of the day, it's not for the government. It's for people of that country or the population, citizen of that country. So therefore, the World Bank, tries to be like as fair as possible, and just make sure that there is enough economic strength that the company, because the problem is, if World Bank overlends, is not good for the country because they won't be able to pay back. It's not good for the World Bank, because then World Bank looks bad because it's not a triple A rated
Right, right.
institution. So it tries to protect the whole. It's a business model or the ecosystem, or otherwise everything is going to collapse. But then but there is always like some kind of negotiation where the government cannot pay. The World Bank will try to help out the government with IMF and other entities. So the goal is to help the country out. The goal is never to scheme or generate profit, because every money, that dollar that World Bank is making, that's being watched by all the shareholders, and Nepal is also the shareholders. If the World Bank is making excessive money from the lending, then the shareholders are going to see that. So it's pretty transparent mechanism where everybody could see who is borrowing how much, at what terms, who is paying back when, how much of money World Bank is generating through lending, how much of money is paid to the salary, how much money is paid to the building. So this is pretty open to the governments, because Nepal is also a shareholder.
Right. So how is the work structure? Like in Nepal falls in Asia, or how does just say Nepal wants to apply for the loan, where they will come to Washington DC, or there is somewhere in Asia?
No, there's a country office in Nepal, Kathmandu, and we have a director based in country office, and usually they are the main point of contact for people, not DC, because they know the country, they know the system, they have already analyzed the economy of the country. So they are the first people, and they, in fact, they stay in close contact with the Ministry of Finance there in Nepal, and they talk to each other, and they make sure that so it's that's how it works. Yeah.
So just say somebody wants to. There's a lot of NRNs there, or even Nepali working overseas expatriates, if they want to get the job in a World Bank, what is the process? Where they can start? Could you guide some of our listeners?
Sure. I mean, the World Bank, by the charter or by the mandate, it publishes all the vacancies on its website. It has a job portal. So if somebody is interested, they can go and see at any time all the job postings are put in there. So you can go and see, and then see what your interest is, depending on what the qualifications they're looking for. And it's a pretty competitive process. It's not easy. I wouldn't say it's easy to get a job at the World Bank, but I'm not saying it's impossible. It's a competitive, but then again, I mean, there are many Nepali working in the World Bank, and yeah, you just have to apply through that portal, and look out for the opportunities, because sometimes you might not find the opportunity that you're interested in or where you meet the criteria. It might take 6 months, 1 year. So you have to keep looking out. And also there are the local vacancies as well. Nepal country office has opportunities as well. Probably it's easier to get a job in a country office than probably getting a job here in DC. So you have to like avail or explore all the avenues, but the website is the primary source for if you're looking for any kind of job opportunities.
How important is a recommendation, or have to know inside somebody to, is that necessary or no? I think
Eh,
it, it helps. What do you say?
no, I think that way it's different from the private sector, because all the selection is done through a selection panel. So it's not one individual making the call, that like at least 5 or 7 people in the selection panel. So you really have to impress. Once you meet the basic or minimum criteria, you have to impress the selection panel to get the job. You know, and so that's pretty standard process. So I mean, I'm myself new to the World Bank 2.5 years. So I don't think there's any weightage of the recommendation that somebody does and you get the job. No, you have to, you put in the same pool where people, they had like 100 people applying for a job, and they'll see, okay, if they're looking for PhD, do you have PhD, how many years of work experience you have, what is the field of PhD, what are they looking for, what kind of experience you have, and all those things do matter. So if you want to get a job with the World Bank, probably ideally you need to have PhD. I don't have PhD, but my job is very specialized, and I'm not an economist, and I'm not on the lending side of the bank. I'm more on the risk side of the bank. So therefore, you don't need it. So there are jobs without PhD, but most of the jobs need a PhD degree, advanced degree or master's at least, and you need to have a prior experience. If you're not getting the World Bank, see if you can job in ADB, or you can job some other development organization, either in Nepal, outside Nepal. And if you have worked like work for the UN system or UN organization, it's much easier to, if you're working in a UN organization, and if you find a suitable vacancy at World Bank, if you apply, you have a higher chances of getting a job than somebody who has not no experience working in any kind of development agencies. So yes, even you could be working in a JICA, which is a Japanese international agency. Those things do matter, because those both credentials on your resume, that okay, you have worked in the, you're really genuinely interested in the development field, rather than you're looking to join World Bank for the sake of joining.
Well, but sir, you were the gold boy, golden Goldman Sachs boy. That may that help you or not? What do you say?
Oh yes, I mean my job. If I wouldn't have gotten the job if I had not come from Goldman. That's
Yeah.
how I feel, because the experience that I acquired there, attained there, that credentialized my resume, and that put a big weight, when I was facing
Good.
the interview panel.
It's like climbing Mount Everest if you were in a financial system. So a couple of questions, sir. So what kind of economy system you observe from outside Nepal has? It is a capitalist, is a market economy, social economy. I get pretty confused because tax rate is so high, you know, their fiscal deficit and all kind of stuff. What is your thoughts? How Nepal can grow at the faster pace and become a developed nation?
I mean, for Nepal, I mean, geostrategically, Nepal is between India and China. So probably they are going to be the number one, number two economy, or number three economy, like a 10, 20 years down the road. And still Nepal is not developed, then that's our misfortune or bad luck. So we just have to see, rather than getting too much into politics, how we can tap into the energy that we can get from the both sides, because these countries are really big and we are tiny. Even if you can get 1% of their economy, or then it's going to be more than enough for us. And we have to see where our strength lies, right? Tourism could be good potential. At one point of time, we talk about the like a hydroelectricity power, but I don't know. I'm not out of touch with this field anymore. I don't know how much potential there is, because a lot of politics there as well. So I think if you want to develop ourselves, probably we have to think less about politics, more about business. And if you're more pro business, that's the only way for us to basically reap the benefits of being strategically located between India and China, the two great nations in the world.
Right. So if I, if you go talk to very young generation, middle class, even lower class, or even simple citizen, the same motorbike cost in India 50,000, Nepal is 150,000. So this kind of basic, there, government is taxation in a basic stuff, which is right now every house have two, three motorbikes, or even you see cars, which is now kind of also necessity in Nepal too. What kind of taxation you think is like a high taxation like Canada, or maybe like any African country? What models will suitable for Nepal? Because it's all imported economy, and most of the manpower works, labor force is outside Nepal, and the country is run by pretty much remittance and other stuff. uh, there is a high unemployment rate, more than 25% youth don't have job, and it's like it's still a very basic agro economy. Right now the government is going through the federalism, there is more expense than the income. What is your view, what's your thoughts?
Uh, there's not a lot of there's a rocket science or magic here, right? I mean, if you want to make it be more efficient, probably you need to have a smaller government. That applies everywhere, in the US as well. It's not the people think, oh, the business model or the template for Nepal is very different. The template is more or less same. You need to have a smaller government. You need to have a less friction in the society. Those taxes have to go lower, but let's not focus on taxes. That's just the one aspect of the whole economy, right? If the government has no other way to generate income, then it's just going to focus on taxes. So rather than, it should look to expand the economy so that even the taxes are lower, it's going to generate enough tax revenue so that it can pay for the expenses. It has to pay to the pensioner, it has to pay for the maintenance of the roads and all the stuff. So the government is in a bind as well. It's very easy to say that the taxes on the motorbike is three times, but the government has no way to generate the revenue for themselves. So the only way it could do is expand the economy, make it economy more dynamic. So say, you have a expand in the tourism sector. So you have that's where the revenue will come from. So that means you can get more tax revenue from tourism sector, so that you can lower the taxes on the bikes and cars that's coming to the country. So it's going to be a trade-off. But the bottom line is the growth. Tax and all those things are secondary and tertiary factor. The growth, the economy has to expand. If the economy is not expanding, no matter how you slice and dice the pie, it's not going to make a big difference. So the bottom line is expanding the economy, and then the economy can only grow if you're tapping into all the resources you have, the human power, and just the strength of the Indian and Chinese economy. I mean, that's and it could be possible. It doesn't have to be 50-50. You have to see, it could be 70-30, or it could be 25-75. Don't get into the politics that it's a 50-50. It's nothing 50-50 in the world. But again, I mean, but at least you have to make sure that both sides, China, India, they feel comfortable whatever they invest in Nepal. But they can bring in a lot of money. I mean, a lot of capital in the country, and do a lot of good stuff that we ever wanted to do.
So here, a lot of NRNs in the USA, there's a 4 to 5 lakhs. Yeah, भइसकेको छ. What do you think in the same World Bank model, business model? NRN USA just say opens America NRN Bank and gives the loan to those small business to, because I think any country, a small business is a fire engine of the economy. Is this kind of model is sustainable? Just say even if like just say 10,000 or 50,000 Americans give you, builds a pool of just say $10 billion, and then they loans very much like a no default, this kind of model to those private sector, or is not, this is like a, it is not doable because people will default.
It is doable. Tara, our NRN ko bank in Nepal needs much more capital than NRN bank can supply to Nepal. So that could be one of the many sources that Nepal can tap into. But at the end of the day, you need the big capital. The big capital, I think, in the way I see it, could come from only India and China because they have a vested interest there. It's not going to come from America. It's not going to come from Canada or UK or even other countries. So that's my, again, personal view because these countries are big and Nepal is in between them. And both the countries, they want to see Nepal as a buffer state because that helps both of them because they can focus on the other stuff that they have to deal with. But it's good. And again, anyway, I mean, right now, if you see that Nepalese economy, like even though probably there are more people working in India than working in Nepal. I mean, you go all over India, and I don't think it's a great thing for Nepal because there's no opportunities within the country because we have not kind of, things are much more politicized in every level. I'm not talking about one particular party or particular individual. We have more politics, but we need politics is fine. I'm not saying politics is bad, but then it is the emphasis should be on economy than anything else, and for that we should need to sacrifice every other agenda people might have on their mind, because it could be, there could be, anytime Nepal there are hundreds of different agendas going on, but those
Sure, sure.
should.
Yeah, so we are ended the interview, sir. This program today. Thank you for your time. So we have two last questions, and we have only 2 minutes. So right now, a lot of NRNs here in the US, they are very keen seeking to buy these cryptocurrency like Dogecoin, these all different coins, bitcoins. What is your take on that one? Is that really people don't know, but they are लहै लहैमा अरूसँग गऱ्यो भनेर किनिरहेको छ र अलिअलि किन्छ अनि त्यसपछि चियर्स गरेर बियर पार्टी गर्छ अलिकति बढ्यो भने what do you say? You are the risk management experts. What do you say to this view?
Again, it's my personal view. I mean, the Bitcoin could be for many, it might be a Ponzi scheme. So if you have excess cash, there's a small chance that Bitcoin really could take off, but there's a high chance it could become zero. So it depends. Yeah. I mean, if you have $100, that $100 could become 10,000 or $100 could become zero, but it's okay for $100 because we can all tolerate $100. But say if you have 50,000 US dollar, you put that in the Bitcoin, yes, 50,000 may become half a million, a few millions, or that 50,000 could become zero. Just imagine a scenario. Will you be a happy person if that 50,000 becomes zero? If you can't take that risk, then don't dabble into Bitcoin. But if you think that it's okay, to, to buy the lottery ticket, and yeah, it could be, it could take off, and then you can become a millionaire. Then it's a personal choice.
Right. So recently, the Berkshire Hathaway, this convention recently, just few weeks ago, Charlie Munger said this is the biggest, worst thing financial tool human has created, and it was so negative. It was in Wall Street Journal. Did you have a chance to comment on that one? This is the last question.
I mean, there are two camp of people. Those people, probably Charlie Munger, he hasn't invested a lot of time understanding the Bitcoin, so probably it's very easy for him to brush it off.
Yeah.
But the other people who have spent a lot of time,
Right.
and they know the power of the Bitcoin, but there's no guarantee that Bitcoin is going to take the form there. Maybe there's underlying technology. Blockchain could take off, not the Bitcoin. It's possible Ethereum could take off, not the Bitcoin. It's possible Tether could take off. So you don't know which one is going to be, or it could be none of them. The government might come up with, the Fed might come with their own, digital currency. So there's so many permutation and combinations. So yeah, people who have invested a lot of time, yeah, they're right that it's going to be a big deal, but you don't know which form. And tomorrow, government might come in and say they're going to, make all the Bitcoins illegal. That's another risk as well. So yes, I mean, so there is a lot of risk. So I think Charlie Munger is not wrong in the sense that a lot of buying that we have seen. Do you know that the like a more than 90% of the Bitcoin is held by like a few percent of people, like, you know. So it's it's very lopsided there, and it's a very opaque market in that way as well. Few news, like Elon Musk is saying that, oh, they're gonna let people buy Tesla using Bitcoin. It's a big positive for the Bitcoin prices. And 2 days ago he came with something else, and the price tanked. So the small news is affecting. So if you are looking to become a rich quick, probably
Bitcoin King.
Bitcoin king, then I would say don't go there.
All
But
right.
if you have lots of money, if you're $1 million and 50,000 you're willing to waste, oh, invest in Bitcoin. Nothing should. Look,
Thank you very much. So we are at the end of the program. It was so
no,
nice that we thank you for coming to the show and educating our whole Nepali. And we'll put a post in Radio Nepali USA YouTube channel, and we will share this to many. Thank you again. We will bring you again. Thank you again.
no, thank you, Jaji.
Okay,
Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
साथीहरू, तपाईँहरू सुन्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो रेडियो नेपाली अमेरिका। आजको सो यहीँ सकिएको छ। फेरि कन्टिन्यू गर्ला। थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच।